this computer. Hey guys, welcome, welcome. I've had this song, Love Is All You Need, playing literally on repeat in the back of my head now for a month, because for the whole month of February, we've been talking about this and looking forward to today and getting to have this conversation about all you need is love. So my daughter is going to be thankful that I will not be singing this all the time anymore. And I'm going to have to find a new song for next month. And I will tell you at the end what we're going to be focusing on for our workshop next month. But yes, love is all you need. And I thought February was a perfect time to be talking about this topic because it's the season of love, right? And this is way more than just candy hearts and chocolates and Valentine cards, right? And so this idea of love is really, really important. But I'm just going to say right from the very beginning, this is not about, you loving everybody else. This is about you loving you, right? Like, let's be honest, how many of us, it's very easy for us to do the things for everybody else, but when it comes to us, that's a little bit harder, right? So I'm going to challenge you that as you're listening to this, that you are really thinking about how could this make a difference for me in being that goal achieved girl, right? When you think about your one big goal or your one big dream, what is it that you would love to see happen in your health, your life, your relationships, your business, anything connected to you in this next year? It really is going to come back to the concepts we're talking about today. So if you have a pen and paper and you want to take notes, great. If not, this is being recorded and many of you are probably already watching this on replay, so you can go back and listen again. I've got my notes here in front of me because I want to bring a ton of value to you. And I just want to say, I'm on this journey with you, right? Like, these are things that I am working on every single day, and I'm seeing the difference that it makes. And I know that will make a difference for you as well. So let's start off with a definition. I was a teacher by background, so I always like to go back to the basics and say, what are we talking about, right? When we talk about love, love is an affection for. And I want you to think right now, you may be in a place that you can say this out loud, you may not be. What are some things when you say, I love ... like you'd fill in the blank? Like maybe it's like, I love ice cream, right? I love puppies, or my friends who love kitty cats, or I love weekends or Fridays, or I love my spouse. I love my significant other. I love my kids. Maybe I love my grandkids. I love whatever that is, right? Usually there's some person or some object that is receiving that affection. Now, how easy is it to love other people, right? And other things? How hard is it to love ourselves? Right? Why is it that way? I think that as women, our nature is to nurture, to care, to serve, to do everything for everybody else, and not do that same thing for ourselves, right? Oftentimes we think that loving ourselves is selfish. Have you ever thought that or said that? Like, don't worry about me, I'm good, right? Like, it's all about you type of thing. Or maybe you've even thought to yourself, gosh, there's just never enough time. There's never enough money, never enough focus or energy left over for me. So maybe someday, right? So very often we have loving others down pat, but today we're going to talk about loving yourself. Because when we talk about being that goal achieved girl, here's what I want to tell you. And if you don't take anything away from what we talk about today, I want you to take away this one nugget. Ready? You are the only person who can change your results, right? You are the only person. And so that's why the things we're going to talk about today are so, so important, because it starts in here, right? It starts in here and here. And I think these two things are connected, right? The head and the heart. That's where it starts, regardless of what's going on outside, regardless of if you got flowers for Valentine's Day, regardless of how many Valentine, cards you got. Remember back in grade school when you'd have the little boxes on your desk and everybody would put the cards in there, and you felt really good if you got cards from all these different people. And then they started making it that you gave cards to everybody so nobody would feel left out, like, right? So often we measure like how much we're loved by those external things, but we're going to be talking about that inside work today. Okay. And when we're looking at designing a life around what matters most to us and what our goals are, it's going to be based on three things: how we feel, which is going to tie into us talking about self-sabotage and how we want to remove that; how we act, which is going to tie into talking about self-love; and how we think, which is going to be tied into our self-image. Notice self, self, self. You see the pattern there, right? Like, again, you are the key to this, right? You are the key. And so we're going to talk about those three things. How can we remove self-sabotage? How can we include self-love? And how can we create that self-image? So today, as you're listening, whenever this is, whether you're live or on replay, whether this is in, close to when we're doing this, February of 2027, or you're listening to this years down the road, I want you to come to this as your goal achieved self. So think about you with your goal achieved. And let's just give her 5 years. It may not take 5 years. You may be there, in 5 months. You may be there, in a year, but you 5 years from now. So for me, right now in this time and place, who is goal achieved Lissa in 2027, right? When she has achieved these goals and she's doing these amazing things that she's dreaming about and that she's looking at every day. I want you to have her in mind and listen from her perspective, not just from the perspective of where you are right now, right? Because that's what we tend to do. We tend to see the world around us based on our current results. And guess what? That's why we keep getting the same results. That's why we keep going around in circles. That's why sometimes we just make incremental, growth towards something. Whereas if we actually start looking at it from, I'm already at that place where this is already my life, right? I've already accomplished this big goal, this big dream, whatever it is that's on your heart and mind to do. Wow, that feels amazing, right? Then we can just reverse engineer it to what would she think? What would she say? What would she do? What would she believe today, right? Because the only way she got there is by doing and thinking differently. So I want you to be listening from her mindset, okay? And we're talking about who not to be and who to be as that goal achieved girl who has the things that she's desired. Okay, so let's start with what to remove, right? Because if we can get rid of the stuff that we don't want, it's going to leave space to put in some of the things that we do want. So the number one blocker for most women is self-sabotage. Would you agree, right? How many times have you been growing and succeeding and making progress and seeing things happen in your life, and then you get in your own way? You do something and it just kind of undoes everything, or you go right back into that comfort zone, right? Yes, been there, done that. We oftentimes are the very thing that's keeping us from being that goal achieved girl. So what happens is that our paradigm kicks in, right? That's our pattern of thinking. We'll kind of circle back to the whole paradigm thing towards the end, but our habitual pattern of thinking just doesn't think that we're good enough, we're smart enough, we're beautiful enough, we're successful enough, we're valuable enough, right? Yada, yada, all the head trash that we have going on, right? And so what happens is we just go right back to that same place, right? Or sometimes even slide back further. So how many times, I want you to think about, like, where does self-sabotage come up for you? Okay, now that can be a very personal thing. So I just want you to kind of think about this maybe in your own head, or maybe even jot this down, because this would be a really good exercise to go back to and say, where do I see this happening? Right? So that you're starting to raise your awareness, because when you're aware of it, then you can actually remove it, right? It's when we don't know that there's something there that's blocking us that makes it really, really hard. So maybe you've lost some weight, and then guess what? You found it again, right? Or maybe you've developed this relationship and then you've overthought it and then kind of talked yourself out of it. Or maybe you've been waiting and expecting this big opportunity to come, and then when it comes, you just shrink back, right? And you just are I don't know if I can do this, right? That is our habitual thinking. That's our habitual thinking that shows up again, right? And that subconscious mind takes over to keep us in that safe place, to keep us in that comfort zone, that place that we've always been, what we've always known, how we've always seen ourselves, which is how it's going to tie into the self-image in just a little bit here. So here's what I want to remind you. If you have not heard this yet today, or you need to hear this today, you were created by God for greatness and a purpose, and you have amazing things inside of you, right? And so self-sabotage does not serve you. It also does not serve anyone around you. And I'm going to share a quote with you about that in just a minute. But here's the question is, where does this self-sabotage come from, right? Oftentimes it starts with us believing what other people have said about us. So maybe as a kid, you were told things like, you're not smart enough, you're not fast enough, you are clumsy, you're loud, you're obnoxious, you're, annoying, whatever, right? Kids are mean. We have adults that speak into our life, whether it's teachers or parents or other people that, maybe it's our siblings, but you keep hearing all these you are's. But guess what? It doesn't stop just being kids. Oftentimes it goes into our adult years, and we start hearing it from, maybe coworkers or bosses or, spouses and things like that who, maybe we have some toxic relationships in our life. We start hearing all these you are's, and guess what? We start believing them, right? we start believing, yeah, I'm not that, I'm not enough, I'm not beautiful, I'm not wanted, I'm not right, all those things. And then we have this that's continually going in our head. And then we have something that I call the report card syndrome. Have you heard of the report card syndrome? So like you have that kid, remember you back in the day, and maybe, maybe you were a C average kid, right? And so you get that report card and your parents are saying, yeah, you're a C average kid. And your teacher says, yep, you're a C average kid. And so then you graduate from college or from high school with a C average. And then you kind of just have a C average in college, which gets you through, but not really great. And then you get into your job. And, it's like that report card from way back when, like follows you to the other things that you're doing because you're telling yourself those same things. You are all the things that you had heard, right? They say that the average person has 70,000 thoughts a day. Like, what if you were to literally write down, and this is going to be bonus homework. So if you are willing and brave enough to do this, start writing down the things that you say to yourself. It's just like, have you ever gone like on a diet? I hate the word diet, but you go on this diet and you're like, okay, I'm going to track what I'm eating. And if you write down everything you eat, you're looking at that list and you're like, oh man, I don't know if I like this, like maybe I'm not eating very healthy. No wonder I have the results that I have. I think we need to do this for what's going on in our head, right? Like, what if you had to write down everything that you said to yourself? I think you'd be shocked. I think you'd be embarrassed. I think you would say, I wouldn't say those things to my best friend. I wouldn't say those things to the people that I love. So the question is, why are we saying them to ourselves, right? So start raising your awareness and paying attention to those things. And then we want to do is we want to start silencing the you are's with the I am's, right? We want to change that way that we've been seeing ourselves, or that self-image that we're going to come to in a few minutes. We want to change it into that goal achieve self-image, right? What are the things that she is, and start affirming those things, right? We all have great things about us, right? So what is it that you know to be true about you, whether or not you really feel it, and say it over and over and over again. And I guarantee you're going to start talking to yourself differently and not getting in your own way. So I want you to think about, right, what's that you are that you've believed for so long, whether it came from somebody else or it just came from you, looking at your current circumstances or frustrations or weaknesses or lack of success. And I want you to say, what could be the opposite of that, right? Like take that you are and turn it into an I am. That's the opposite in the way you want to see yourself. And then every day start saying that to yourself, like out loud, like you mean it. So mine this week has been, you are confident, because in the past it's been, you are not enough. So I'm sorry, I am confident. So in the past it's been, you are not enough, right? And so I've been really focusing on, I am confident. And I've learned a lot of lessons about confidence this week. It has not been an easy week when it comes to confidence, but guess what? I'm just continuing to repeat that. That's part of the process. We start believing those things because they keep getting repeated over and over, the negative things, right? That's where self-sabotage just keeps getting deeper, deeper, deeper. So we have to keep repeating the things that we want, right, to be in the direction that we are going. So when you're thinking about like, how do you get rid of self-sabotage? I'm going to give you 3 steps. So if you're taking notes, here are 3 ways to remove self-sabotage. Number 1, identify the source. Like look in the mirror and just say, where is this coming from, right? So what is the story that I'm telling myself? Or what are the things that I'm believing? Why, maybe even why am I thinking these negative thoughts? What is this attached to, right? That awareness, that recognition is the first step. And always ask yourself, what would happen now that you know that self-sabotage is there? What would happen if I give into this, right? If I believe that I'm not enough, what's going to happen? What's the outcome going to be, right? Is that going to move me towards my goal achieve self, or is it not, right? And then I want you to think about the other side of things. So what if I don't give into this? What if I choose instead to say, I am confident? Is that going to move me towards my goal achieve self? Yes, it will, I promise, right? So number 1, awareness and asking yourself, is this moving me in the direction I want to go as a goal achieve girl? Number 2 is taking small steps to boost your self-worth. So like high-fiving yourself in the mirror. Mel Robbins has a new book out called High Five, and literally she has you do that. High-five yourself in the mirror every single day. When you look in the mirror, smile at yourself. It's so easy to see the wrinkles, the bags, the sags, the things that you don't like about yourself, but like go in and be like, hey, beautiful. It's so great to see you, right? Like start replacing those you are's with those I am's and like actually say it to yourself. People may be like, why are you talking to yourself? But here's what you can say is everybody talks to themselves. I'm just choosing to say positive things to myself instead of self-sabotaging things to myself, right? And then the third one is to get outside support, right? But this is going to be, you have to be very careful with this. You have to involve people in your inner circle who are also going to be building you up towards that goal achieved girl. So you might need to look around at who's in your inner circle right now. Who am I inviting into my life? And what are they saying? And what are they affirming about me? Are they the ones who are saying to you ours that you need to put some healthy boundaries and move them outside of your inner circle? Or maybe you don't have any people that are building you up and that are really supporting you and encouraging you. So how can you make space for and start inviting those people in so that you can grow into that goal achieved girl, because you've got other people who are also affirming that in you as well. I truly believe we all need that inner circle of people that are going to help us move to the next place. So I love this quote. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. So before we move on, if you're able and around someplace that you can write, I want you to write down, like, what was your aha when we talked about self-sabotage? Where might self-sabotage be coming up for you that you haven't been noticing? What you are's have you been believing or saying to yourself? What I am's can you replace them with? And what people can you put around you that are going to help affirm and build you up, right? Because we want to remove that self-sabotage. Keeping that in there, it's just like a cancer, right? It just continues to grow and eat at the healthy things, and there's no space for the good stuff to grow. So we want to first get rid of the self-sabotage. So I hope that that has helped you to awaken up to that. The second one is a little more fun, and that's where we include self-love, right? So there is something called the law of opposites. You got hot, you have cold. You have inside, you have outside. You have up, you have down, right? So guess what the opposite of self-sabotage is? It's self-love, right? So when self-sabotage is a blocker, self-love is an accelerator. That means it's a force that can push you forward towards this amazing life faster and easier than before. Because when we have self-sabotage going on, guess what, ladies? This is like the gas and the brake being on at the same time. Have you ever like been behind somebody who's driving and you're like, what in the world? Do they have their foot on the gas and the brake at the same time, right? Like, we wouldn't do that driving a car because we know it's not going to be good on the engine. It's not going to get us where we want to go. And it's going to be, just a really slow process. But how often are we doing that ourselves when the self-sabotage is the brake? And maybe we have a little self-love thrown in there, right? That's the gas, but that brake is always going to be counteracting. So let's turn now and focus on the self-love piece. And again, here's where it comes back to love is a give-receive thing. Right? It's so easy to give it, especially as women. That's our nature. We nurture, we give, we serve, we sacrifice, we love. But how well are you receiving it from others? But how well are you receiving it from yourself? Like when you say those I ams, when you give yourself the high five, when you smile at yourself in the mirror, are you truly like, thank you. Yes, I will accept that gift. That feels amazing. Right? Or are we oftentimes, even if other people try to give us compliments or they try to give us a gift, we often kind of like downplay it. Like, no, you didn't have to, you shouldn't have. Yeah. All the things. I know we've all said them, right? That's not receiving that love either, right? We need to make sure that we're committing to authentic love. And it always starts with loving ourselves first. Because here's the thing. If we are not loving ourselves and we think that we're going to love all these other people and things in our life, we're going to be an empty cup and we're not going to have much to pour out. So we have to make sure that we're filled up. And I think, again, we go back to what we talked about in the beginning. So many women see that as selfish, but really, if I were to grab a cup and there's nothing in it and somebody asked for a drink of water and I went like this and nothing came out, well, that's selfish on me because I didn't even take the time to fill it up, right? But what if I go and I fill up my cup, right? And so then when that person needs something to drink, I can pour right out of my cup. That is love, right? But it takes us being loved first, right? And love is one of those things that we need to make sure does not have conditions, right? We'll talk about boundaries in just a minute because I want to make sure I make that disclaimer, but that it's not like I'll love myself when, or I would love myself if, or yeah, I'd love me if I was her, right? Like that's conditional love. We need to make sure that we are loving ourselves just for who we are and who we are becoming. And also then showing that same love to other people, because how we love ourselves sets the example for how others are going to love you, right? If we're always putting ourselves down, if we're not making space or time for ourselves, if we're not making ourselves a priority, guess what? That's probably how other people are going to treat you. And you're going to wonder, like, why do I not feel loved? I always say, if you're not getting the result that you want in your world, look in the mirror first. Look in the mirror and say, what is it in me? If you don't feel loved, what is it in me that I'm not loving, right? Like, how am I not loving myself? And look, always look there first, right? Because love is one of those things, like, you have to work for it. It's a commitment. We don't always feel like it, whether it's with a spouse or a kid or a friend or a neighbor, or whether it's with ourselves. It's that commitment to, I'm loving even when I don't feel like it, because this is what I've chosen to do. So how do we like include the right kind of authentic self-love? Well, number one, it starts with loving yourself first, right? Where you recognize your uniquenesses, your differences, like you see yourself as perfectly imperfect and amazing, right? And when we put ourselves down and put that self-sabotage, that's not goal achieved girl thinking. But when we love those things about ourselves and we can celebrate the growth and we can celebrate the things about her that are amazing and who she's becoming, that means you're going to be bringing a whole nother level to the table, right? Every time you go to serve, every time you go to give, every time you go to do as that goal achieved girl, oh my goodness, people are going to be like, where did you come from? Like, this is amazing, right? And then that's going to get reciprocated back to us because we are setting the bar high. So the first one is loving yourself. The second one is unconditionally loving others. Like, remember, they are imperfectly imperfect or perfectly imperfect too, right? They have uniquenesses. They also have flaws. So what are you choosing to focus on? Just like with ourselves, we can choose to focus on our weaknesses and our woe is me's and our I'm not enoughs and all those things. Like, what if we find those positive things in other people? Because here's what's really cool is when you look for those good things in others, it's usually also reflecting back on the things that you are seeing in yourself, right? So let that be like, kind of let that be a test. When I look at other people, do I see their weaknesses? If so, you probably see your own weaknesses. Do I see their strengths? If so, do a heart check for you and say, am I loving myself? And am I also seeing my strengths as well? Okay. I love doing things like random acts of kindness, so be thinking about what are little ways that I can just throw love in more and more and more. Because the more that we can serve and give from that goal achieved self, right? Who says, I am enough and I am confident and I am amazing. It's just gonna, like, that goes out and I guarantee that's gonna come back, right? That's the law. That's one of the universal laws. What you put out comes back. So when we are loving ourselves and then we're expressing love to other people, it will come back. Now, two quick things that I just want to say when it comes to loving other people unconditionally. One, make sure that we have healthy boundaries around that. So I thought about two situations. One would be enablers, right? Like, encouraging or allowing destructive behavior is not love. Staying silent is not love, even though we may think that it is. So really make sure that you have a right definition of love, even with yourself when it comes to that. If you're letting yourself off the hook, if you're letting yourself cut corners, if you're letting yourself quietly quit, if you're, oh, this doesn't really matter, no big deal. Okay, you are self-sabotaging yourself. So watch out for enablers, right? And for enabling yourself as well, or enabling other people. The second thing to watch out for is hoverers, right? Those like helicopter moms, overprotective, like mom or spouse or whatever, who wants to like control everything. Controlling everything is not love either, right? People need that space to be themselves and to make decisions and to figure things out and stuff like that. And we can oftentimes, especially as moms and women, like, we can do that with other people. We can sometimes do that with ourselves and feel like, almost make it like, if it's not perfect, right? Everything has to be just like this. And if it's not perfect, then I can't love myself, or I can't do, and then I can't move forward and do this. So really make sure you're watching out for those two, because those are not true love. Like, we want to be committing to authentic love and what that really is. So right now, be thinking about, like, how can I love myself more? What are the things about me that I can start expressing gratitude for? I can start appreciating. I can start celebrating. Maybe they're little things, maybe they're big things. It doesn't matter. Just start with something. Start with a high five in the mirror. Start with the smiles. Start with the I ams. Start with, like, whatever those things are that are going to fill you up because you are taking that time to love yourself, and then let that pour out into others, whether it's someone who's in your world every day or someone who just happens to cross your path that day. When we start filling ourselves up and loving ourselves and that spills out, like I said, it's always going to come back to us. So as I was thinking about this and like, what is true love? I was thinking about 1 Corinthians 13. So let me read this section to you. It says, if I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I'm a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have understanding of all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but I don't have love, I'm nothing. If I give away all that I have and I deliver my body to be burned, but I have not love, I gain nothing. So here's what love is, right? We can do all these things, right? But if we don't include love for ourselves, for others, then it's all empty, right? So here's what true love is. Love is patient and kind, even with yourself, right? Love does not envy, right? Comparison when you're on social media. It doesn't boast, thinking you're better than everybody else either. It's not arrogant or rude, even to yourself, right? The things that you say to yourself, it is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way, right? Control. It is not irritable. It's not resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing. Oh, see, yep, there we went again. Yep, I knew I was going to fall. I knew she was going to fall. Like, that's not really love, right? But rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Love never fails. That's from 1 Corinthians 13, the first 7 verses. So that's a great place to go back and check. Am I really, when I do things, am I including self-love? Because if I'm not including self-love and then letting that flow out into love for others, it's all empty, right? So going back and doing that heart check about where that is. So here's my question for you. Are you living a life of that kind of love? Are you including self-love? And are you letting that pour out into the people that are around you so that you are loving them as well? Now, you may have never thought about this before, but I'm going to challenge you. Like, what if you set a goal or 2 or 3 to include more love in your life? I guarantee that your results are going to look different, right? Because you're going to start putting out different things into the world around you. So what might that be? Maybe it's that, once a day, you're going to give somebody a smile. Maybe it's that once a day, you're going to give an encouraging word, right? Via text or a voicemail or comment on somebody's post. Maybe you're going to look for opportunities when you see somebody, going out to a car that needs some help, that you're going to, go over and ask if you can help, or just say hello to somebody who looks like they're lonely, or whatever it is. Like, how can you intentionally include more self-love and love for others and see the difference that it makes? I would love to hear, because I know that that is so key. When we remove the self-sabotage, we have to fill that space with something else. And the best thing to fill it with is with the self-love, right? Okay, so we're going to move on to what is the crux of all of this. And I've been talking about this as we've been going along, right? But the key to removing the self-sabotage, the key to including self-love, is really creating this new self-image, right? Because like we talked about in the very beginning, you cannot outperform your self-image or your thinking and your self-love or your actions, right? It's like we set those results based on where we've always been. So if you want different results tomorrow, then we have to have a new self-image today. We have to see ourselves as that goal-achieved girl, right? And then reverse engineer it to how would she think? How would she feel? What would she do today? Because here's the reality. We are what I like to call a stick person, right? So we are mostly spirit inside of just a physical body, right? And all of that impacts why we think and act the way that we do. Because our mind takes in information from all that's around us, right? And then it attaches meaning to it, right? This is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong, this is, this makes me feel this way, this makes me feel this way. And then we start to develop in our subconscious mind this paradigm, this habitual way of thinking that keeps us, that then directs what we do and say. So say, for example, you walk into a room and you see a whole bunch of people and you just freeze, right? And you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't talk to anybody. I'm overwhelmed. I'm so shy. I'm nervous. I'm an introvert, all the things. You can have somebody standing right next to you that walks into that exact same room who sees all the people and says, wow, look at all the opportunities for conversations today. Look at all the people that I can meet, that I can add value to, that I can serve, that I can connect with. I can't wait to get to meet them, right? Same situation, but how their paradigm, right? How they habitually look at things is what made all the difference. So if we want to get different results, let me step back and say this. Where you are right now is a result of the way you've thought and acted up till now. Would you agree with that? Right? This is the result, good, bad, or indifferent, of all the things I've done up until now. Okay. So who you're going to be one day as that goal achieved girl is going to be the result of all the things that you do, think, and say between now and then, which is actually really exciting news, because if we want to have different results, we can change how we think, act, and do, right? so that we get different results. It's really a very simple key, but the problem is we get stuck up here in our own heads, right? Here's where self-sabotage starts coming in, but this is how it's always been, right? Like, this is what things have always been like. Like, think about, we have this like mechanism, our brain and our subconscious mind controls our body, right? So I want you to think about like a thermostat in your home. So right now it's winter time when we're recording this. And so my thermostat is set to turn on the heat if the temperature in my house drops below 68 degrees. So if somebody leaves the door open or the temperatures get really cold outside, then I will hear that heater kicking on more frequently, because the thermostat is always going to bring things back to that same level, right? The same thing can be said of like an airplane, right? Like if an airplane is flying, we know that most of the way they're flying is by radar, but along the path, they're going to be winds. There are going to be, maybe turbulence that they have to go up or, go up and over or go underneath. There are going to be things that will take them off course. But guess what that radar does? That internal like device takes it back on the path, right? Like it will, if it veers off, it will take it back. So that is what our paradigm does. Our paradigm will take us right back to like homeostasis, right? What is our normal? And so here's where this can come in, where we talked about some of those examples we talked about before. Like we talked about like somebody who wants to lose weight, right? So maybe you've always been the weight that you are. And so when you lose 20 pounds, guess what? You're not comfortable with that new person and way of thinking. And so oftentimes it's how we find that weight, right? Or maybe you've always attracted in the same type of people, whether it's friends or significant others into your life. And so when this different relationship comes in that seems to be going really well, then our paradigm kicks in, right? That self-sabotage, and we kind of just we just kind of crawl away, we hide, or we're afraid to move forward, right? We overthink it. Or maybe that opportunity, like you've always been at this level in your business or in your career or whatever it is that you're doing, this opportunity comes that you've been waiting for and saying that you want, right? But like our internal thermostat says, but that's scary. Like that's beyond what I've ever done before. I'm gonna like go here back to the safe zone, right? So our paradigm is here for a good reason, right? To keep us safe. But if where it's keeping us is not where we want to be, then it's time for us to change our paradigm, to change our thinking. And guess what? You are the only person who can change that, right? When we want to create that new self-image, you are the only person who can do this. And I'm going to give you 3 steps for how to do that. Okay, the first one is awareness. And I think this is the first step for everything. I was just having this conversation earlier today. It always starts with being aware, right? What am I doing? What am I saying? We talked about the self-sabotage. Be aware of your thoughts, right? In the self-love, be aware of how am I showing myself love, or how am I showing others love, right? And how can I do more of that? So in this case, you may think of I want you to think of a situation that you do not have the results that you want, right? It doesn't necessarily mean they have to be bad, but it's just not where, maybe it's not where you want to stay or where you want to be for very long. Like, what is that situation? I want you to notice. This would be a homework assignment for you afterwards when you are in a place that you can actually get out a journal or a piece of paper and write this out. What are the things that you notice, right? So, and almost be like the newspaper reporter, like you're not attaching any judgment, any shame, any stories, any of that. Just, oh, okay, yep, okay, oh, yeah, right? Just writing down the facts. What are you doing? What are you saying? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Right? Put all that down on paper, because guess what? All those things are firing up in your head like that fast. You're not even aware of the fact that this is the process that's going on in your head, because our thoughts, right, determine our feelings. Our feelings then we act upon, and then when we act, right, then we're going to get that coming back at us from the world around us, and then we're going to start that cycle again. So the question is always, am I letting the world around me put the thoughts in my head, which lead to my feelings, which lead to my actions, which lead to my results, and then back again? Or am I going to start initiating that with the ones that I want for my goal achieve self, where it is that I want to go, right? So that first step is awareness, right? The more detail you can put down, the better, because then you're really going to be able to move on to step number 2. So step number 2, to create a new self-image, now that you're aware of everything that you can about this situation or this circumstance or this result that you don't want, is to go through and to highlight or underline or circle all the non-productive activities or feelings, or whatever you want to, whatever fits in there. It's not moving you towards where you want to be. We call them NPAs. So what things are not serving you? What things are not moving you forward, right? They may be thoughts you're having. They may be things you're doing. Maybe you're sitting on, on Facebook instead of going out and having those conversations. Maybe it's what you're saying in your head, and so that keeps you at home instead of, doing what it is you say you want to do. Maybe you talk yourself out of things. Whatever it is, like, notice, right? We're going to start identifying, circling, highlighting, underlining, starring, like, what are the things that are not serving you and not moving you forward, right? And what we want to do then is we want to turn those, just like with the URs that we turned into IMs, we want to take those NPAs, the non-productive activities, and turn them into PAs, productive activities. Like, what's the opposite of that? So go back to our law of opposites, right? What's the opposite of me, saying that I'm not enough, right? I am capable and I am confident and I have been successful and I can do this, right? Or what's the opposite of getting stuck in the scroll hole, right? Maybe it's that I set a timer for when I'm going on, or I get my most important things done first before I go on social media, right? So finding, like, what can be the opposite that's actually going to move you in the direction that you want to go, right? Then step number 3, this is one is really fun, because what you're going to do is you're going to focus on, you're going to express gratitude for, and you're going to hang on to those new PAs. You're going to make them action steps, habits, thoughts that you have on an ongoing basis. So maybe you put Post-it notes up to remind you. Maybe you put a reminder on your phone. Maybe you have some other, like, trigger that helps you to be remembering to go back to that. And then here's what you're going to do with those NPAs, right? So you've got this list of NPAs, right? We've got a list of PAs. I like to say cut it up the middle, right? So you've made your, like, make it like a T-chart, and then take that list, and you can do one of 3 things. You can crumple it up and throw it away. You can shred it if you really want to see that happen, or you can burn it, right? Because that's not you. That's not goal achieved you. That is not who you are with your goal achieved. So we're just going to get rid of it and focus on what's going to move you forward, right? And so now you start coming at your world and at this situation with this goal achieved thinking. It's going to make all the difference. Because here's the thing about goal achieved girls, we don't just do more, right? If we just do more from our current circumstances or our current mindset or our current self-image, guess what? We're just going to get more of the same results, which is not what we want, right? Not where we want to stay. So the goal achieved girl learns to focus on being more first. How is she being? And then let that being start aligning with the doing. Because if you're being this, but then you're doing this, guess what? Like, these 2 aren't matching, right? But when we can get these just like this in alignment, wow, now we've got a force that's moving forward because it's working together. So goal achieved girl says, I'm not just going to keep doing to exhaustion and thinking that if I do more, it's going to get me to my results. She says, how can I be that girl who already has the results? The doing one says, I'm going to do so that one day I can be her, right? And when I am her, then I'll throw away all this other junk, right? The goal achieved girl says, no, I'm going to be her now, right? Who would she be? And then how can I start acting, thinking, believing, doing like her today? I guarantee it's going to move you towards that direction instead of the other one, right? So that whole key is that we are building a new self-image of you with your goal achieved. And then always paying attention. Where is self-sabotage coming up? How can I include more self-love, right? Almost like checking in, like kind of pretending she's like sitting on your shoulder. I like to kind of like visualize my little girl kind of right up here. So when I have a decision or I have an opportunity or I have a choice to make, I can pause and say, what would goal achieved Lissa do? Would she say yes to this, or would she say no? Would she take the time for this, or would she not? Would she push herself to try this? Would she say no? Like, start coming from that place, and it's going to be amazing. So are you seeing how these 3 things work together, right? It all starts with you. Okay. So we can remove the self-sabotage that's taking up valuable space, valuable property, right? Get that out of the way. Okay. That's the first step. Then we want to start putting in the self-love, right? Because we put in that self-love, that's going to now lead to our actions, and not only how we're treating others, but how we're interacting with our world and things around us. But at the same time, we also want to be thinking with that new self-image, like that goal achieved girl. So are you ready to be a goal achieved girl? What's so cool is that this all starts with you, and that means that you are the one who can change it. And really, there are only 2 ways to change your paradigm. The first one is an emotional impact. Have you ever had a situation in life where, like, there was an accident, somebody had a diagnosis, you had a sudden loss, or just sudden like life thing that just made you like, whoa, right? It kind of like shook you. And then you started thinking and acting and doing differently. We've probably all had that, or we've watched somebody else and maybe that has impacted us, our journey as well. So you never think and act the same, right? Because once you've experienced that, you don't want to go back to who you were before. So that is one way to change your paradigm. I'm going to tell you a couple things about that option. Number one, it usually involves pain and loss, heartache, difficulties, that type of thing. It's usually not in our control. So it's not really something that I'm waiting around for if I want to change my paradigm, right? So the second way that you can change your paradigm is by coaching and repetition. So we talked about that repetition of I am, right? And bringing in, like we talked about earlier as well, bringing in somebody who has that outside perspective, who can see the things that you can't see, right? We all have blind spots. Especially when it comes to our paradigm. If this is how we've always thought and acted and believed, we can't even see it, right? Until sometimes we get it out on paper or until we talk about it with somebody else and they are able to start pointing those things out, right? We have someone that comes alongside us who doesn't believe the stories we tell ourselves, right? Like, don't you need somebody like that who doesn't believe your stories or who doesn't give in to your fears and who's able to show you, hey, that's a story you're telling yourself. Hey, that's a fear that you're giving into. Hey, that's self-sabotage. Hey, that's not loving yourself. And then somebody who can help you to like create a plan that's going to move you farther, faster. Like, what if we do this? What if you, love yourself in this way? What if, and start helping you to build that new self-image and that girl who already has her goal achieved. Like, that's A, in your control. B, it's working towards positive change. And it's something that, is not going to involve, the negativity of that emotional impact. So that's the direction that I always choose. But what is it that you would choose, right? Waiting for something to happen in life. And like someone told me earlier today, someone she knows lets life decide for them. I don't know. I don't like that, right? Because we all know life happens. And so then it's well, this is happening to me. Or instead, we can say, you know what? This is happening for me. And I'm choosing to design my life. I'm choosing to design my self-image. I'm choosing to be proactive about where I'm going and to be that goal achieved girl now. So I don't know about you, but that's the option that I choose. That's why I will always have a coach, because I need somebody outside of me to help me get outside of my current self, right? So we're close to the end here. I just want to thank you if you've been on here live or if you've been watching a replay. It just means the world to me that you are here, but more importantly, the fact that you are willing to invest in you is so, so key, right? Because so many people are just just going through life, right? And then they wonder, why is life like this? Why am I not where I want to be? Why do I keep going in the same circles? Why? Why? Because they've probably got a lot of self-sabotage. They probably are not doing much self-love and loving of others, and they're keeping themselves with the same self-image. But as a goal achieved girl, I know that that is not you. So I have 2 gifts for you. Are you ready for this? 2 gifts, okay? The first one is I have a brand new resource called the Goal Achieved Girl To-Be List. So if you're a recovering to-do list girl like I am, who just thought that doing was the answer, this is going to help you. It's a simple routine to go through to get you being first. And then that will dictate what things you do. Okay, so that's the first thing. You can head over to lissafiggins.com/BE, and you can grab that to-be list. The second thing is I would love to offer you a goal achieve success call. So that's an opportunity for you to be able to have a life-shaping coaching conversation with me to talk about, like, where is self-sabotage coming up? And how can I love myself more? And how can me loving myself now pour into the people and the things around me? And what difference could that make? And how do I start like creating a new self-image where I'm not thinking from my current results or my past, but I'm thinking from that goal achieved girl and from where it is that I'm going. So that is my gift to you for being on here. So you can head on over to lissafiggins.com/success for that your goal achieve success call and grab a spot so that we can talk more about what is it that you truly desire, what might be getting in the way, what can help you move faster, right? And what can help you to be that goal achieved girl now. Sound good? So I trust that this has added value for you, that you're walking away feeling loved, knowing that you are loved and that you are worth being loved and that you are worth investing in. And so when those things come up, notice. It's always the first step. Notice it, right? And then decide that a goal achieved girl isn't going to give in to those things anymore. And she's going to start living differently as if she already has her goal achieved. So I can't wait to hear what your thoughts are and what's going on in your head and your heart as you've listened to this today. So please make sure you reach out to me and share your aha moment. What is it that was really stood out to you from all the things we talked about? What was it that you needed to hear? And then we'll make sure to have that conversation. And feel free to share this with friends or family or other people that you think it would add value for as well. And coming up next is going to be our decluttering series. So the 4 Ds to declutter your life. I lost my title. Here it is. The four Ds to clear the clutter and make space for something new. And that's going to be at the end of March. So be watching your inbox for more information on that. Because when we start decluttering not only our physical space, but also our emotional space, we start seeing a lot more goal achieved girls popping up in the world. So thank you everybody for being a part of this. So appreciate you. Go out there and love well, and we'll talk soon.